Hi everyone, I'm Senta, and this is The Shakespeare Show. On this episode, I'll be discussing the play Hamlet. Okay, first, a fun fact. When I was researching, I discovered that Hamlet is based on an old legend about a character named Hamlet, which is an anagram for Hamlet, and in the legend, Hamlet pretends to be crazy as a form of protection when his uncle kills his father. Another interesting fact is that Shakespeare had a son named Hamlet with an N who died when he was 11 years old. This play feels very personal to Shakespeare, and I think it's because it deals so much with life and death, and through the discussion of that you hear a lot of thoughts about what's the value of the world and what does it mean in terms of how you go out of this world, in terms of your everlasting soul type thing. And that's through the exploration of Hamlet's considering suicide, the fact that Ophelia committed suicide probably, and as a result she can't be buried properly, which is a problem in terms of her everlasting soul. And then King Hamlet is murdered when he hasn't had a chance for last rites, obviously, and he hasn't cleared his soul at all, so he's a ghost who has to wander the earth. So then you have Hamlet, who, when he has a chance to kill his uncle, he doesn't because he's praying and he's worried that his uncle's soul will go to heaven instead of hell, and he wants to make sure it goes to hell. So there's all this idea of not just life and death, but also the idea of your soul and how it's impacted by your exit. Now, the interesting thing about the fact that Hamlet doesn't kill his uncle when he has a chance is because he doesn't kill his uncle, a lot of people die. So there's a lot of talk about how inactive Hamlet is in terms of he thinks and he talks about a lot of things, but he doesn't act on them, and by acting I mean killing Claudius. While Hamlet does consider himself a coward for not acting, I think that he can be forgiven for a lot of the inaction during the play because all he has to go on for a while is the reports of a ghost, and you probably should trust but verify anything a ghost tells you, which he does with the play. Now, once he has the information from the play, the next time he sees Claudius alone, he's praying, which isn't a good time because of the heaven-hell thing. So after that, maybe he should have found a good time, but all the time before that, you can excuse it, even though it does result in the death of a lot of people, that he didn't just go ahead and kill Claudius. Another major theme in this play is madness, in terms of Hamlet pretends to be crazy as a form of protection. Now, this is played differently by a lot of people. Some people play that he really does lose his mind, or loses his mind to some degree, and some people play that he's faking it the entire time. And I think it's interesting because Hamlet pretends to be crazy as a result of his father being murdered, and he considers suicide as a result of his father being murdered. But Ophelia actually does go crazy when her father is murdered, and she actually does commit suicide, allegedly, when her father is murdered. So you have these two characters, and one who just thinks and talks about it, and one who actually does things. So that's a little interesting to me that he put those two characters in such similar situations. Now, here's the thing about the madness in this play. I think that all the craziness is one of the reasons why I have not had as good a reaction to this play as some other people do. I don't like to see actors play crazy with a capital C. And I feel like you get that a lot. You get actors who just say, oh great, this is my chance to play crazy. Like, oh great, this is my chance to play super drunk. And they just go to town with it. I don't know. I don't like it. I feel like if people simplified the craziness a little bit, and certainly for Hamlet, he says crazy things. You don't have to play the idea of crazy. You can just let the words do the work, I think. Other problems I have with this play are that it's just too long, and it should have been seriously edited, and Fortinbras, there's just no reason for him to be in this play. You hear about Fortinbras all throughout the play, and then he comes in at the end. He sees that everybody's dead. He says he'll take the crown. He says, bury all these people. Now, do we really need to hear about him the entire play to set that up? And do we really need him at the end? Because I think that makes the play weak at the end. It should be where Hamlet dies, Horatio says goodbye. Horatio could say something like, oh, he was the best guy I knew ever, whatever. Fade to black! We don't need Fortinbras to come, and we don't need the English ambassador to come in and tell us that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. Who are two other characters who do not need to be in this play, and just make it longer. Another issue I have with the play, and I think that sometimes there are these little things in Shakespeare where you're just like, why, Shakespeare, why? Are the pirates? Why are there pirates in this play? I I could be wrong, but I don't think in the olden days you could hardly throw a stone without hitting a pirate. Not only does Hamlet's boat run into pirates, but they give him a ride back to Denmark. Whoever heard of pirates just offering water taxis around? And I guess they do it because they just think Hamlet's like a nice guy. They like the cut of his jib. But come on! That's a bit of a stretch. Not Shakespeare's best plot device, and I feel like, why couldn't the boat just have had boat trouble and they had to turn around? And when they got back to land, Hamlet was like, wait a second, I'm not going to England. I've got some unfinished business back at Elsinore. Wouldn't that have been a better way to handle the whole situation? I mean, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern wouldn't have any way to be murdered, but really, why are they killed anyways, just for being bad friends? Doesn't make sense. Okay, I'm gonna let it go. Now, before I come to my final problem with this play, I want to say that I actually do think this is a good play. I like it a lot. I know why people think it's a masterpiece. But here is probably my biggest issue with Hamlet. It's the women. The way the characters are and the way they're treated. Now, as far as how they are, they're not great roles for actors, I don't feel, compared to the other roles in the play. They're weak, they get told what to do. You've got Ophelia, who's needy and weepy and crazy, and Polonius and Hamlet tell her what to do. You have Gertrude, who's incestuous and weak, and Claudius and Hamlet tell her what to do. And they're just not great parts. But my real issue is with how Hamlet treats these women. And I realized when reading the play that this isn't an issue in the play. This is a staging issue. And I think it's something that really needs to be looked at, because I often come away from Hamlet not liking Hamlet. And the reason I don't like him is because in the Get Thee to a Nunnery scene with Ophelia, he is pushing her, he's shoving her, he's on top of her, he's slamming her into things. And then in the scene with Gertrude, where he's taking her to task for everything, he's on her bed, wrestling with her, pushing her, shoving her. And that's not necessary. It's not in the play. In the play, as you read it, he's just attacking them with his words. And I'm not sure when this started as a convention and why it keeps getting carried through, but every time you see this play, you see all this physical violence, and it just makes me not like Hamlet as a character. So I think it's something that directors or people who are directing scenes from the play should really take a look at before they just do what they've seen people do before, is ask themselves, why is it necessary to have a violent Hamlet? Because he's a great thinker. He's a poet at heart. He's very sensitive, and he loves these women. This is his girlfriend and his mother. These are women he loves. And there's nothing that indicates that he decides to be violent with them. Now, I guess some people would say, oh, he's so impotent in the rest of his life, he can't take action on his uncle, that maybe in the only places where he feels like he's got more power, he throws it around. But there's really no grounds for that. So why do we have to see a violent Hamlet who's basically acting like a jackass? I don't know. Let's stop it right now. I've seen enough of women being thrown around the stage in Hamlet. Okay, so before I finish, I want to say that I came up with my ideal casting for the role of Hamlet, and that is Alan Rickman. I think he would be great. Probably a young Alan Rickman, although I would go see Alan Rickman now. If he wants to do Hamlet, I'll stand in line, take my money please, because I think Alan Rickman is one of the few people who can play melancholy well and keep it interesting. I think he could really bring an edge, and Hamlet is a very witty character, so I think that's a little snark from Alan Rickman would really be great. Also, I think he has a little bit of an edge of danger, and I think that's an interesting thing. You can have a Hamlet who is such a poet that he's not dangerous and he's trying to get his energy up to kill somebody, or you can have a Hamlet who has an edge of danger, but his intellect and something is restraining that, but you totally believe that he could kill Claudius at any time. So I think Alan Rickman would be absolutely perfect, and if he wants to do that, I will pay money to see him now, even though the age is not totally appropriate. It's the stage, and who can tell what's going on from the 20th row? You could just go ahead and play the part. Alright, in the next episode, I will be reviewing 5 versions of movies of Hamlet. So, I'll see you then!